All right, there's another really, really important aspect of things that are happening in the legislature that I want to talk to you about today as well. As you've seen in the news, right, with what's happening in Texas, the governor in Texas, Texas is being overrun at the border. The United States is being overrun. And our own federal partner, and I say partner because that's the way it's supposed to work. In our system of government, Madison tells us in the compound Republic of America, the powers first divided between two governments as a double security to the rights of the people, that the two governments will control each other as a double security to the rights of the people. Well, we've got a federal government that is looking the other way. It's their job to protect the border, and there really is an invasion. But that brings up an important aspect of what's happening in Utah. I don't know if you realize that right now we're under air quality restrictions by the Department of Environmental Quality in Washington. And here's how ridiculous it is. If we were to take every person, every life out of Salt Lake and take them down to St. George and empty out the Salt Lake Valley, we would still not meet the air quality attainment standards from this Department of Environmental Quality. And yet they continue to push the standards on penalties of fines and shutting down business and industry, and it's just quite frankly ridiculous. Another example, we had the EPA issue an order that we have to shut off all coal-fired power in Utah by the year 2026, 2 years from now. That's almost 70% of our power in Utah, and we're under an order to shut off 70% of our power within 2 years, as if there were anything possible about that, and they just simply don't care. Those are the kinds of things that we're just getting edicts on high from our federal partner where they don't even have jurisdiction. If you look in the Constitution, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government decides how we power our economy in Utah. The federal government decides the air quality standards for Salt Lake and for Utah, even if they're so far out of bounds that they're completely unattainable. And so that's a major theme, not only of this legislative session, but in our duty as citizens and in our role as states in a republic, in a federated republic, which is the genius of what America is. The federated republic means that we have two levels of government that can protect each other, protect the people from each level of government. So this week we had a bill that started in the Senate. It is Senate Bill 57, Utah Constitutional Sovereignty Act. Senator Scott Sandel was the sponsor in the Senate, and I've been privileged and asked by the Speaker to sponsor this bill in the House. And what this bill does, I mean, some in the media have made all kinds of claims about what this bill isn't. Let me tell you what the bill is. What it is it provides a mechanism whereby we in the states regulate that division of power between the states and the national government. Now, the Supreme Court quite recently spoke about this, and they made the statement. They said the police power, not just cops with guns and badges, it includes that, but he said the police power is the general power of governing. And they said that's possessed by the states, not the federal government. And they said that this police power, they said that it covers the life, the liberty, the property, all things that deal with governing concerning the life, liberty, property of the people. And they said that in our system, that's held by governments more local, more accountable than a distant federal bureaucracy. And then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said, in the typical case, we look to the states to defend their prerogatives by adopting the simple expedient of not yielding to federal blandishments. I had to look that word up. They don't teach that in law school. Blandishments means coaxing, coercing, cajoling, forcing. So they said, we look to the states to adopt the simple expedient of not yielding to federal blandishments when they do not want to embrace federal policies as their own. And then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court finished his instruction on the nature of our government by saying this. He said, states are separate and independent sovereigns. Sometimes they have to act like it. Like, we shouldn't wait for the Supreme Court to pronounce on everything. If we do, then we're ignoring our own sovereignty, our own jurisdiction as a state. He said, you're a separate, independent sovereign. Don't wait for us to tell you every single thing. You have the general power of governing. The federal government, far away, less accountable, less transparent, has few and defined powers. The states, closer, more accountable, more transparent to the people, numerous and indefinite powers, the Federalist Papers tell us. And so the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was telling us, act like it. Act like a separate, independent, sovereign state. Exercise your jurisdiction, define, assert your jurisdiction. Don't wait for us to tell you everything, every little aspect of that. And that's really what Senate Bill 57 does. It's a mechanism for the state to simply call out when the federal government has crossed that line. They've crossed our jurisdictional line, your jurisdictional line, and gone into areas where they have no authority. And we don't have to recognize that. In fact, even Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, before she passed, she said, a law that is unconstitutional, that is outside the powers of the Constitution, is no law at all. And this is this is the premise behind this Senate Bill 57. I have another bill coming forward here that just got numbered last week, and that bill is House Bill 409. And really excited about this. House Bill 409 is the Presumption of State Jurisdiction Act. And what it simply says is what our constitutional system created, that the 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. And so the House Bill 409, Presumption of State Jurisdiction, really just provides a mechanism out to state agencies, to local government, to everyone throughout the state, and it says, the jurisdiction over all governing matters within the state is the jurisdiction of the state, unless there is a specific provision in the Constitution as amended, giving that jurisdiction, that few and defined jurisdiction, to the federal government. And then if the federal government still claims things other than what is listed in the Constitution as amended, the burden of proving that they have jurisdiction over the particular matter falls to the federal government. And if they can't prove it or they still assert it, then it goes to our Federalism Commission and our Legislative Management Committee to discuss the nature of that jurisdiction. We don't just let a federal government under any party just simply say, thus saith the federal government, we get to tell you what to do. That's not what our constitutional structure does. And until we restore the roles and the responsibilities in our Constitution, your rights are not secure. In fact, Justice Scalia, in a case not too long ago, he said the fragmentation of power produced by the structure of our government is central to liberty. And if we destroy that, we put liberty at peril. It's absolutely critical that we maintain and honor and restore and keep in balance the structure of our government, the rights and the jurisdiction of the different governments, the federal government, the state government in our constitutional structure. One of the framers that we don't speak about too often anymore, but he was very active, John Dickinson. He was the Pennsylvania farmer. Often they called him the penman of the Revolution, and very, very active. But he made a statement. He said, in short, the government of each state is and is to be sovereign and supreme in all matters that relate to each state only, and subordinate barely in those matters that relate to the whole. And it'll be their own faults if the several states allow the federal government to interfere in the things of their jurisdictions. And that's really how the system works. It's up to the states. If the federal government is asserting powers that they were never granted and never intended to have, it's the states that must provide that check and that balance. And some people go, oh my gosh, you can't tell federal officers that they don't have jurisdiction. Well, you can't do that if you don't want to follow the Constitution. But if we're going to follow the structure, the beautiful, the exceptional structure of our Constitution, It's the duty of the states to do that. And so that's a theme that you're going to see not only throughout the legislative session, but honestly throughout the rest of this year. This is a really critical year for the United States of America. We're at $34 trillion in our national debt. The world is now saying, hey, we don't think we're going to take dollars to buy oil. We're going to start moving away from the dollar as the reserve currency. We've got things shaping up for November under both parties that it just looks like November is going to be a dumpster fire no matter what the results of the election are. And it's up to the states to keep a calm head, to understand the nature of jurisdiction, that in Washington they have few and defined powers, few and defined things that are assigned to them to do. In the states, all things that concern our life, our liberty, our property, fall under the jurisdiction of the state. So no matter what happens with the results of the election in November, fear not, be of good cheer. Everything that really affects our life, our liberty, our property is to be governed in the state where government functions. 85% of the time, bills pass with majority bipartisan support. Almost the exact opposite from Washington. Be of good cheer. Things look scary. They look very uncertain in Washington, but that's not the way our system was designed. And so we need to just go back to that original constitutional recipe, like Justice Scalia said. The fragmentation of power produced by the structure of our government is central to liberty. And as long as we maintain that structure, few and defined powers at the national level, numerous and indefinite powers at the state, our job as citizens is to select and sustain the leaders at the state level that understand that it is their job to make sure we keep the federal government in that few and defined constitutional box. And then our voice really matters at the state level, where you can call me on my cell phone, you can come to the Capitol, we can have discussions about policy over the things that affect your life, liberty, property. So those are a couple of the really big issues that are up this week. There's a lot more going on. We've had all kinds of people come up to the Capitol already. I love it when constituents come to the Capitol. Love to engage on policy matters and keep an eye on these things. And please let me know if you've got thoughts, if you've got concerns, and we'll look forward to sharing more with you next week.